What we need to understand is that when we are born into this world, we come in really as an enemy to God. There's a scripture which says, that we are born in sin. That's kind of what that means. That all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. So in spite of how lovely we are, how cute we are, how beautiful we are when we are babies, just in the entrance into this world, that's why the grace of God is so important and so powerful. And that we should be so thankful for it, because he allows his enemies to be born into this earth.
Lord have mercy.
This earth belongs to God.
Yep.
This earth belongs to Jesus Christ. Yet there are other kingdoms here. There are other kingdoms that are invisible. And when we get born into this world, we come into an invisible kingdom where an invisible ruler is in charge. And that ruler is Satan. And when we come in, there are demons assigned to all of us. And so one of the areas that I want to look at today, you might say the theme of where I want to go today, is the issue about demonic soul ties. That's where I really want to go today. And just to give you a little backdrop of what I'm talking about here. First, I think that I need to define for you what a soul tie is. A soul tie is the knitting or binding together of two or more souls. And this knitting together and this binding together can either bring a tremendous blessing when it is a godly relationship, or it can bring tremendous destruction. In a destructive soul tie, the will, and I'm going to call this individual now the captive. The will of the captive is unnaturally affected by another, where the captive's thoughts, emotions, and actions are no longer completely their own.
Yes.
That is a soul tie of dependence. And the God intended that when we that when we came into this earth, that we would come into a godly soul tie with our parents and with the rest of our family. That is God's intent. But because we have come into families that have already for generations been opened up to demonic influences, and what the Christian world is now calling that is ancestral curses, for example. Things that are in a family that seem to continue and seem to move from one family member to another. I'm going to give a little bit of an example. First, let me say that a demonic or ungodly soul tie is like an invisible rope between two or more persons. And it's a rope that demons can use. If you think about Tarzan swinging around from place to place in Africa, between the trees. I mean, the demons in the invisible world are swinging back and forth on this invisible rope that the demons use to their advantage, so that they can cross over or travel from one person to another person, and that usually is within the family. So if I was to put another title, I don't know what the title is going to be when we talk about dysfunctional families. A soul tie that has been established that has become destructive. All right? So what we need to know is that much demonic bondage, okay, is brought about during childhood. Childhood is the time when we are all vulnerable. And we come in, by faith into a family that may already have had the demonic rope swinging back and forth within them. And so then we come in and we catch it. How did this subject come up for me? Well, in a lot of ways. I mean, it must have been 6 or 7 different signs. And if I were to go through all the signs that I had this week to bring this message together, I wouldn't be able to get to the message.
Yes.
But one of the most outstanding signs is a client that I have. Mm-hmm. Now, this client's major problem has been a lack of self-esteem that was perpetuated upon her by her family, to the extent that she was either belittled or overlooked or overshadowed by other members of the family. And where, it was a cultural thing, there's certain cultures, for example, that, I don't want to call her culture, I don't want to call its name, but, there are various cultures within a family where the practice of witchcraft is normal. It's a natural part of life. For example, gypsies are naturally, do the psychic thing. Right. Read palms, look at crystal balls and that kind of thing. And you can have a whole line of people like this within a family. Yes. So that, going to an astrologer or to a psychic is just normal. Right. Because you may very well have one of those people within your family. Right. And so the family just adjusts to that kind of a life. Yep. And so it just becomes the supernatural on the dark tip becomes natural. Right. And so what you have is on top of the belittling, the low self-esteem, being in the shadow of everybody else, what you end up with, and on top of that, there's also a spirit of witchcraft that is really acceptable and moving throughout the family. Yes. And so through counseling, we began to break in, like Zanita says, you talk about digging deep. All right, when you dig deep, there are certain things that you have to ask a person when you've got a person that's suffering from a demonic soul tie. The first question that you need to say or ask them is, how do you see yourself? Do you feel guilty? Are you confident? Do you have low self-esteem? Are you overshadowed by other members of your family? Are you belittled and made to feel like you just not all that in a bag of chips? That you are beneath everybody else? Are you the one that always got the hand-me-downs in the family and nobody really paid very much attention to you? Where your particular opinion did not count? You hear what I'm saying? Yeah. So that's one of the ways of digging deep. When you see a person whose self-image is low, chances are that there is I'm not saying that it always will be, but chances are they certainly are vulnerable to picking up a demonic soul tie where somebody else pulls your strings. Do you hear what I'm saying? Amen. Somebody else pulls your strings. Then I think that the next question to ask is, do you have ancestors or family members who have suffered from a similar kind of bondage? For example, is drug addiction moving throughout your family? Or, is not being able to maintain a relationship with a man moving through your family? You know, that there seems to be certain patterns of things that stand out. And then, of course, there's that question of, have you or your ancestors been involved in the occult or any false religions? Which would include secret societies such as Freemasonry, you know, seeking the occult power or knowledge from others, fortune tellers, astrologers, the whole bit, Obia, whatever. You know, Santeria, has your family, and I have to include in that list Catholicism. That's important to include there. Countless bondages are rooted in some form of occult involvement, either by the person themselves or by their family or by their ancestors. So when you're talking about demonic soul ties, see, within the realm, demonic dealing with the occult involves witchcraft. And witchcraft involves manipulation, domination, and control. So I would ask questions to the person like this. Does a family member manipulate you? Are you easily controlled or dominated by others? This is good assignment work here, so take your notes. I'll say that again. Does a family member manipulate you or dominate you, whereby you can't be who you are? Right. You're being controlled. And so where this particular client is concerned, that kind of, you know, pull all this together, because like I said, I just was talking with this client yesterday, but like I said, there was 5 or 6 other things that was pulling this all together. Right. For example, one of the things that pulled this together for me was looking at a movie that I'd seen before, but I caught the end of it. And what it was that there was a bully in the family, a real out-and-out bully that had the mother and the father afraid. And the mother and the father allowed their oldest son to rule the house. And what ended up happening, he was a sadistic, and he loved to instill fear in his younger brother, and he tortured his younger brother all of his life till the boy got a hold of a gun and shot him dead. All right, so here you see a demonic soul tie having been set up for years, whereby those who were in parental authority did nothing to stop it. Right. In fact, encouraged it. Right. To the extent that this young person was driven by anger and fear to have to pick up a gun and shoot his own brother dead. So that's one of the things that I think I could mention. But now where this client is concerned, we have been working and digging deep on dealing with the issues that were necessary to deal with prior to deliverance. This is what I'm talking about when I say we have to dig deep. For example, one of the things that I find with people who feel like they have been at a loss, they have always been, the one that gets the chicken wing after everybody ate the best part of the meat. Okay? Now, a person like that sometimes develops a rather thankless personality, whereby they whine and complain, but continue and continue and continue to let people take advantage. And then they go off in a corner and they whine and they complain some more. But people just keep on taking, keep on taking, keep on taking. So we had to deal with a lot of personality issues. And for a minute there, I thought that I had gotten too hard on this person and that I was going to get fired. But lo and behold, the person did not have 2 or 3 sessions with me, and God intervened. God intervened, and next thing I know, I see confidence, I see security, I don't see complaining anymore. I see, the torment, because she was getting a lot of demonic torment through her dreams, and feeling demons on her body and different kinds of things like that. All that seemed to stop. So I was beginning to think that, you know, oh, this is a successful client here. You know, we don't have to cast anything out here because look at the progress that she's made. One of the points that she used to complain about was a body image. My problem, you know, if you got a body image problem, there's something you can do about that. You can gain weight, you can lose weight, you can build muscle, you can dress differently. There are things that you can do to put confidence into yourself about your body image. Because your body image has a lot to do with your self-image. And whether or not you're going to be vulnerable to having other people rule you. So I said, okay, let's work on it. Well, in a short period of time, she's really outdone me. In a short period of time, I put her on Weight Watchers, taught her what it was all about, and she's lost 25 pounds in, it seemed like, maybe 6 weeks. So, you know, so much progress. And then the Lord set it up yesterday that we began to talk, and I found out, I don't even know how I got to it, but as you know, one of the things that I found out in this ministry is that when you about to break a demonic soul tie, that the demon responds to the name of the person who has you dominated. Think about that. The demon, whoever is in you, who's ever got you in your emotions or in your mind, all right, it's a demon who's helping them to do that. Right. And it's the demon that you are casting out. You are not casting out. Remember Ephesians 6:12. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers. So it's not the person who is your enemy. It's the person, it's the demon who is behind the person who is your enemy. And who is using that individual to control you. And so when you call off the name of the person, the demon responds. We've seen it here amongst ourselves. The demon responds and the demon comes out. Well, I had thought that because her family was the biggest problem that she had, that the demons were using all of her family members against her, that at least that, you know, and right now as an adult, she is living in the family home. And so my feeling was, well, hey, we've done a lot of work on you in terms of building up your self-esteem and your soul and, you know, giving you some soul strength. But I don't think that we can work as long as your family seems to have so much control. Well, she grew so strong that I said, you don't have to move before I do this deliverance. So one of the people that had a piece of her soul was right downstairs in the house. All right? Right downstairs in the house. And so how I got here, I don't know. But I began to cast off a demon. And I called the demon by her mother's name. And she began to manifest. And what she manifested was a lot of coughing and choking until the spirit came out. So we began to take them. This is groundbreaking stuff here. We began to take them one at a time. So she got relieved of the mother. And then we went to the toughest member of the family, the oldest sister. And with that, it was just like a breath. But then we went to the middle sister. The sister that was just a few years older than her. The sister who she always felt was in her shadow. You know, the sister that sometimes they'd be friends, but then other times, you know, her sister would trash her, you know what I mean? And just and very often mistaken for that other sister, and that she found herself almost all the time saying, no, that's not me, that's my sister. No, that's not me, that's my sister. Well, that struggle was so hard that the demon came up to the throat, and she was thrashing and coughing, and then it went back down again. And so I said, there's more work that has to be done. We got to do some more work before we challenge that one. Now, what does this tell me? The first thing that this tells me is that, not to say that there are only two, but there are two primary reactions that a captive will have to fight back the loss of self. And one of those is bitterness, and the other one is rebellion. And I'm going to have Zanita talk to you now a little bit about bitterness and what bitterness is and what it does. Zanita, what about bitterness?
Amen. Very intrigued by what you just brought forth. I'm going to transition now into talking about bitterness.
Okay.
With still being feeling very intrigued.
Okay.
All right. Now, let me give you a definition for bitterness. We're going to say bitterness is blameful resentment. Blameful resentment. Now, in terms of looking at the word bitter, bitter results from severe grief, anguish, or disappointment. So, when we talk about being bitter, we're talking about being bitter either against an individual, something that somebody done did to us, or something that someone done did to someone maybe that we care for, that we now have the feeling of bitterness. We're angry. Now that anger might be very internal, where we're not expressing on the outside. Maybe I can be sitting right next to the person who I'm feeling very bitter towards, and they might not even know it because I got it on lockdown. It's more very internalized, and I'm not expressing it. I got it pretty well hidden. Then there's bitterness that is very much behaviorally expressed, where you walking around easily angered. You know that you're angry at this person, and you're very much aware that you got bitterness against this person, and you got an attitude about it, and you're downright ticked off. You feel very well justified because this person or this situation or this circumstance has affected you. So there's different aspects of bitterness. Sometimes there's an awareness that you're bitter, as I just indicated, and sometimes you might even be hiding that bitterness to yourself. Especially when it comes to, as you pointed out, about childhood, and then about your relationships, if you want to talk about relationships with siblings, because with that thing of loyalty many a times you're loyal towards friends, or rather towards siblings. There's a sense of loyalty. So that sense of loyalty can shadow your realization that you're bitter because you want to be loyal. You know what I'm saying?
What bitterness really does is cause unforgiveness to begin to build up inside of you. And let's face it, unforgiveness is a serious matter with God. I want you to take a look at the key scripture. I generally open up with it, but I want you to take a look at it. It's in Matthew, the 18th chapter, and it's a parable that Jesus spoke, and it begins with verse 23. Now, they had been talking about forgiveness, and Peter had come to Jesus in verse 21 and said, "Lord, how often shall my brother sin against me and I forgive him?" When people are in a demonic soul tie with another relative, that relative continues to sin against them. Now, the requirement here is Jesus is saying, you have to forgive this person. But if you are not, if your spirituality is not rooted on the rock, on Jesus, meaning to say that, I can't endure this for Jesus' sake, then what will happen is that the bitterness will turn into unforgiveness. And what I want you to pick up out of this parable is this. I don't have to read the whole parable, but as you know, it's about forgiving a debt, a financial debt. And one individual was forgive a huge debt, but then he could not forgive. He could not forgive a debt, a small debt that somebody owed to him.
Right.
And so Jesus answered and said this in the parable, the master. Remember now, the master really is representing God here. You got to take him.
Yes.
The master here is representing God. He said, then his master, after he had called him, said to him, "You wicked servant, I forgave you all that debt because you begged me. Should you not also have had compassion on your fellow servant, just as I had pity on you?" And his master was angry, and this is the key right here, and delivered him to the tormentors or the torturers. And this is what I am running into with my clients. Most clients who contact me are under torment. They are being tormented daily, hourly by demons. And so what I have to do is search out and assess the reason for the torment. Now, if the reason for the torment is that your bitterness has turned into unforgiveness, then the one who may have unleashed those demons out against you could be God. You understand what I'm saying? So this is what is so dangerous about getting into a demonic soul tie. Because not only now are you victimized by people who are using demons against you, but you also have demons loosed upon you that have been allowed to be loosed upon you by God himself.
Yes.
We'll deal with it. Afterwards, keep your question, write it down, your thought that's in your mind. Something just popped in your mind, write it down, and we'll deal with it when we get done.
Okay.
So, that's the state of captivity. That a person who has swallowed and consumed the manipulation, the domination, and the control of another family member.
Yes.
And I found out that not only can parental authority or put somebody in bondage like that, but sibling authority and relatives in the family can also put you in that kind of bondage.
Yes.
And if you swallowed it, and if you've endured it, if you've taken on that martyr thing of, oh well, this is the family, and you fooled yourself and you lied to yourself, oh I just love the family, oh I just love the family, and they steady socking it to you.
Right. And
you're not confronting the issue.
Right.
You putting, as Anita said last week, rose-colored glasses on the issue.
Right.
But now what is happening is that you have developed a root or a stem of rebellion. Not just a rebellion, of bitterness. I'm the one who went with the rebellion. But the bitterness comes in while you still trying to be a nice guy.
Right.
You understand?
Right.
And then the demons get in and begin to not only torment you by them, but they get some direct access and begin to start tormenting you, and you begin to start hearing voices.
Yes.
So Nita, you got anything you want to add to that?
Well, we can open up to the book of Hebrews. It's time to transition that.
Yes,
that
come on.
Turn to the book of Hebrews.
Hebrews.
Find the Book of Hebrews, and we shall 13. I believe it's 13. Oh, let me just open up the word. Book of Hebrews is talking about the root of bitterness.
Yes. This is a strong bit of meat I'm laying out here before you all today.
Yes.
Because we're talking about digging deep.
Yes.
And not just having a surface Christianity, because we try to anchor ourselves in the rock, which is Christ.
Amen.
So therefore, we need to deal with our internal foundations.
Yes, absolutely.
And if there's something, just as you're getting yourself together there looking for the scripture, I can share with you that I did some research this week, and I happened to find on the web a TV program that aired in 1988. It was a Geraldo Rivera talk show, and it was about cults, and particularly Christian cults, whereby people have been dominated and controlled.
Yes.
You talking about by their church family.
Yes.
Now I'm talking to you about your natural family, but Geraldo was dealing with the church family. And so what ended up happening is that the natural family began to battle the church family over their relatives who spurned them, in the process of this word out there called deprogramming.
Yeah.
In the process of deprogramming, when they began to get in with the church family, the church family began to beat them over the head with, you're going to hell, you're going to hell. You got to spurn the world. You got to stay away from the world. You got to stay away from your natural family. We are your family, and this is what you must do. And so they began to lose their identity and their soul to the church family. But then the natural family decided to fight. So how did they fight? They grabbed the person off the street, threw him in a car, got a deprogrammer, and said, deprogram that church from them. All right? Yeah. Now, that's like the pot or calling the kettle black. You're doing the same tactic that the church folk did, maybe even worse. You're bringing fear and intimidation. You're literally stealing another person's will to study and be and do what they want to do.
Yeah.
So now, the only man that was really successful with this kind of deprogramming was one that did not knock the church, but just came with a spirit of freedom and a spirit of love and talked and shared, and his child missed him and said, I'm leaving this program. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
But go ahead now.
My Lord, so that was excellent. Hebrews 12, and we shall begin with verse 12 of Hebrews. Wherefore, lift up the hands which hang down and the feeble knees, and make straight paths for your feet, lest that which is lame be turned out of the way, but let it rather be healed. Follow peace with all men and holiness. Follow peace with all men and holiness, without which no man shall see the Lord. Diligently, lest any man fail of the grace of God, lest any of bitterness springing up trouble you, and thereby many be defiled.
Okay, what verse was that?
That was Hebrews 12, really beginning with verse 14. So 12, 14, and 15.
Okay. But where is that root of bitterness?
The root of bitterness is verse 15.
Okay. Yes. Looking carefully, lest anyone fall short of the grace of God, lest any root of bitterness springing up cause trouble, and by this many become defiled. Yeah. Now, another word for defiled is demon oppressed.
Yes. Unclean.
Unclean.
Yes.
That when you have formed within yourself a root of bitterness, you yourself become defiled by that root. And in the defiling, the demons come in. So that you end up even in worse shape with demons that are not even connected necessarily to the family situation.
Yes.
But you may, for example, get defiled sexually. Now, I'm not talking about somebody who has been defiled in their family, by sexual abuse. That happens.
Yeah.
Where even amongst siblings, where sex has occurred between brother and sister, and a defilement through incest has occurred. But I'm not even speaking about that. I'm speaking about that as the root of bitterness begins to steep into you, then you as a person are defiled. I can think of some of my family members who are in their 80s that can go back and dredge up something out of their childhood that they have not forgotten, and there's a root of bitterness in there. Like Jane got the white doll, I got the black doll. Back then, the white doll, you're talking about 60 years ago, for a black person to have a white doll. They wasn't looking for black dolls like we are today. They wasn't looking for black doll, but can go back to that. My mother gave so-and-so the white doll when I should have got the white doll. I got all the hand-me-down clothes from my oldest sister. I never got anything new. My sister put lye in my cold cream and caused my face to break out when I used the cold cream. People that can go back and the root of bitterness, they can literally relive the past.
Right.
And actually relive the past in a more exaggerated emotional way than what the actual situation may have even been.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
And so where a root of bitterness is concerned, the past is in control. And the person will find themselves to be unable to leave the past and always remains in the past, which is contradictory to we are born again. It's contradictory to the rock. All things are new.
Yes.
We are born again. Anything more you want to share with us about that, sis?
Just looking at the verse 14, where it's saying follow peace, holiness. It don't say with just Christians. It say with all men.
With all men.
Yeah.
With all men.
Peace and holiness. See, that's where our flesh will war against. Because when we look at just in terms of even just looking on a race level and different oppressions that different minority groups have experienced, all right, a root of bitterness can be there at times.
Yes.
It will spring up, let's say, for instance, when if a white person might cut you off in the road.
Yes.
It won't just be a white person cutting you off. It's like, you don't cut off you don't cut off my people?
Yes.
Y'all think y'all own the world? Look at how y'all drive. It can just that, because that root of bitterness, is hidden.
Yes.
It's hidden. So we, in pursuing peace and holiness, clearly we need to, in the midst of pursuing that, to obtain peace and holiness, we got to cleanse ourselves of unforgiveness.
Well, racism is a part and parcel of all that.
Yes.
There's a root of bitterness, against towards a particular group of people that you feel has oppressed you, that you have not forgiven.
Yes.
And that you refuse to forgive, and because you relish the hatred that you feel towards them. That leaves you open to demons. You understand? I think a way of putting that, another way of putting it, I come up with my own expression: soul stealing. Soul stealing.
Soul stealing.
When somebody rips off and steals your soul.
Right.
or a piece of your soul.
A piece of it, baby.
You know, let's face it, parents have the right to mature us. I mean, that's the responsibility that parents have been given as far as maturing us and growing us up. Okay, but a parent should not dominate, manipulate, or control. You know, and a lot of manipulation goes on with parents. And you know, a lot of things are done innocently, not intentionally, but the manipulation, thus the same. Manipulating people to try to get them to do what you want them to do.
Yes.
When children are underage, parents have the right to provide them with support. We're going to stop right here.